Hello and welcome to Charch Chat. I am Paul Charchian from LeadSafe.com. Thank you for joining us here at Open Sports. Number of guys to pick up this week, and let's dig in. Some obvious, some not so obvious, and we'll touch on the merits of all of them. For beginning with Deuce McAllister, who obviously becomes the main starting back here. Pierre Thomas just looking okay. Now, he'd scored a bunch of touchdowns, but hadn't really distinguished himself, and if you couldn't tell from the fan reaction, Deuce McAllister kind of a favorite. Not just amongst the fans, but also the coaching staff, and he will likely be the goal line guy. We know that Reggie Bush can't run between the tackles, so you're going to have that going for him as well. Very tough game against Minnesota this week. However, Minnesota is worse against the run on the road than they are at home quite a bit. But this is a tough matchup still. If you want him for the rest of the season, you're going to have to go get him now, and this is probably your last chance. And I'm not 100% sure actually that he holds the job all season, but it's his right now. And he's got the 2 repaired knees. He's not an electrifying runner anymore, but maybe he's just going to do enough to get the job done and hold it, and he'll score some touchdowns. I don't think he's got another 100-yard game left in him. Okay, let's go to Kevin Walter. Now, a lot of people would say, sure, you can mention Kevin Walter after he scores a couple of touchdowns last week, but I get to mention him because I told you all preseason to draft Kevin Walter. And so now that he scores the 2 touchdowns, I can remind you that I told you and urge you to pick him up again now. Now, Matt Schaub looked terrible in the previous games, but he comes back here and looks so much better, in part because he stopped throwing to Andre Johnson and started throwing to Kevin Walter. Andre Johnson dropping everything, just not in the right place. He doesn't look like his head's in the game. Kevin Walter right now looks like the go-to receiver for him. And while Johnson's talent is unmistakable, Kevin Walter's still a good receiver. He's really tall. He's good after the catch. Now, I believe that Walter's going to remain a very big part of this offense, and you're going to find some good games from Kevin Walter. Next, with Anquan Boldin's status up in the air, and you don't know yet how serious his injury is, and maybe he's back next week, maybe he's not back for a month. Steve Breston's going to be the guy who steps in. Don't believe it'll be that Jeremy Urban guy. Breston's got him twice the yards, twice the catches. He last week he actually Breston led the team in receptions and yards. And keep in mind, Anquan Boldin didn't get knocked out of the game until the last minute. So he likely was going to be, regardless of Boldin's injury, your leading receiver for the game. That says a lot. And with Boldin in the game, Breston doesn't do a lot because he's just a return guy and he's the number 3 receiver. But if Boldin's out or Larry Fitzgerald out, and by getting Breston, you've got an insurance policy against 2 injuries, 2 key injuries. He's a guy who's got a lot of fantasy value. Lord knows they passed enough and put up enough points in Arizona. So, yeah, I'm a believer here in as much that you can start him as long as one of the 2 starting receivers are out. So you don't have to go nuts to go get him. But if you've got Larry Fitzgerald, if you've got Anquan Boldin, Steve Breston's a guy to pick up as an insurance policy and possibly a starter this week and any other week that Boldin ends up missing. Last guy I want to talk about is Fred Jackson. He's more than just a change of pace guy for Marshawn Lynch, right? Lynch is having a very nice season, but Fred Jackson is averaging 10 touches a game one way or another. He's very active in the receiving game. He is scoring some, and he's not going to be Lynch, but he's a great insurance policy for Lynch, and he does get his hands on the ball enough that in a bye week you could plug him in and hope that he gets a little something done for your team in a bye week. Maybe he puts together 50 total yards and he gets a score for your squad. And if anything were to happen to Lynch, Fred Jackson becomes a top 15 running back. So somebody that certainly belongs on a roster and is available in most leagues. So there you go. Thank you for watching Charch Chat here at Open Sports.
So you think you can tackle a pro? There's only one way to find out. Click on fantasy at opensports.com.